Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne, and today with my guest, Jen Potter. Jen is a serial entrepreneur, motivational speaker, and business leader. She's founded several businesses, including EPIC47 and EPIC Mamas, and we'll touch on those in a few minutes. And she says her life purpose is to help inspire others to find their why and understand that they can be more than just a product of their environment. Jen, thanks so much for meeting with me today. And fun fact for everyone listening, Jen and I are practically neighbors, and we didn't know that, and we didn't know each other in real life. But thank you for coming and talking with me today.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
So the thing that jumped out at me the most when I started reading posts on some of the common Facebook groups that we're in is your tenacity. So I feel like you're a perfect combination of grit and grace, and that fits in so well with the premise of my show, which is life is messy, it's hard, it's complicated, but it's beautiful at the same time, and we can do hard things. So I want to take a few minutes and sort of set the stage for why I feel like you are so tenacious and what your childhood looked like. We'll start there and then build on that.
I love it. So growing up, it was both beautiful and messy. Just like you said, it's not always perfect. Everybody's childhood, or life at some point isn't perfect. And others, some people just go through different things in different points of their lives. And for me personally, I grew up in a very messy household. My biological mother, she was a drug addict and an alcoholic, and she was very abusive mentally and physically. And so it made growing up very difficult. I had to grow up very quickly. So for me, it was not really living a childhood, living in an environment that wasn't safe, and having to grow up very quick and kind of change my thought process of what the world outside kind of looked from a 10-year-old point of view. And for me, having a 10-year-old of my own and having, we talked about it right before the show started, my daughter pays attention to all of the things that I do. And I want to make sure that I'm creating an environment for her and my other children that wasn't the environment that I had. And I'm pretty successful so far, I think. So hopefully, they grow up to be good human beings. But, with my childhood, it was just a very rocky start for me. And, my dad was an amazing person, but he worked a lot. And so he was never home because he had to take care of us and, all of the financial duties of being a dad. So he never saw all of the things that happened at home. He saw a little bit of it, but he didn't see a lot of it. So growing up was very difficult. And, the blessing in disguise was my parents got divorced, but my mom stayed around for a few years. So it made it really difficult. It wasn't until I was a teenager that my life started to kind of change. And with my childhood being as difficult as it was, I could have fell into two different brackets, right? Growing up, I had every excuse to be the bad kid, and it would have been justifiable, right? I could have done drugs and alcohol and flunked out of school and gotten pregnant at 16, and all of it would have been justified to everybody around me. I was set up for failure from the beginning. So if it happened, it would just be like, it was going to happen anyways. So growing up, I had two options. I had one, I could turn into my mom, or B, I could be somebody else. And, we grew up in low poverty areas. We didn't have a lot of money. And I decided to use the resources that I had at a very young age to help myself and my brothers out of that situation and grow to be a better version of myself. I have proven that you don't have to be a product of your environment, that you don't have to be the person that you were, subjected to be, whether it's a childhood or whether it's in an adult situation. If you were married and, this isn't like actual advice to anyone out there, but if you were in a relationship and you're not happy where you are, no matter what they say, if, I went to my husband and I said, I want to go and do the thing. And he's like, well, you can't do it. Like, let's be real. Like, who's really stopping me? And I give this advice to people all the time. What is stopping me from getting up and even just walking out of this interview? I can do it. There's nothing stopping me. I'm here because I want to be here. There's a consequence to every action, but sometimes we make up the actions in our head. So, or the consequences, like, oh, if I go and do this, if I just disconnect my headphones, Marianne's never going to talk to me ever again. Well, is that true? Probably not. She'd be like questioning why I got up and walked away. And, so we make up these stories as to what's going to happen. And I think sometimes that stops us from moving from where we are in this moment. That's the long of the really long story.
What I want to ask around that is, and it's similar, you have another story that we'll probably touch on with your health scare. And I guess both situations make me want to ask, what do you think switched for you that caused you to recognize you could rise above it versus acquiescing to all the negativity? A lot of people, you said it yourself, it would be expected if some other outcome, a negative outcome. And we sort of expect that based on some bad upbringing or some situations that can occur. But for some of us, there's something that changes or some switch that makes us just know that we have to do something different. What was that for you?
So I think it was the negative comments that were constantly projected onto me. You're going to turn out just like your mom. You act just like your mom. You're just like your mom. And I knew like every inch of me, there's nothing about me that is like my biological mother. We are nothing alike. Like if you put us side by side, you'd be like, other than the fact that they look alike, like that we kind of look alike, but there's nothing that actually resonates ever since I was a kid. And I always felt it like I don't have an addictive personality. She's addicted to all of the things. And I think that that is a big trigger too. Like I don't understand addiction. It was not that I don't understand how I'm very educated. I just don't have an addictive personality. So that right there was like kind of the number one thing. But then, looking at the rest of the family that kind of outcasted my biological mom and looking back, I feel like they would constantly just say like, oh, you're just like your mom, or you're going to be like your mom. Oh, if she got pregnant at, 16, that's it. Like it was expected that those things were going to happen. And so since that was something that was expected for me, I took the negative and I turned it into a positive. And I even did it when I was that young and I didn't really realize I was doing it that young. But every time someone came at me with something negative, I'm like, how can I prove them wrong? And I mean, anybody who knows me at, just about 40, that's my personality. When someone says, hey, you can't do that, I'm going to be like, watch me. And I use that to fuel me. So I give that as advice. If someone tells you you can't do something, prove them wrong and do it, and then do it again or do it better. And that has been my mentality ever since I was a kid. And then also to show my brothers that they could be the best possible versions of themselves, because my brothers turned out pretty amazing. Like both of them have really amazing jobs and they're super, super smart. And, both married, both have really great lives. And, I look back, I'm like, all three of us could have just turned out, a mess. And instead, here we are.
I think that's good advice. And I think it's interesting to hear from people because I think it's different for a lot of people. But I think having that ability to sort of recognize in yourself that these things it's not me and it's not going to hold me back and flip the script. I think that's pretty amazing. I want to talk about your adult experience with that because I also think that's amazing. So you had this big health scare. And you can tell us a little bit about it. And now you've sort of turned that around and said, so what? I'm still going to do some pretty amazing things. Talk to us about that.
Right. So, based off of that whole mentality, I'm going to prove you wrong and I'm going to do all the things that you said I can't do, no matter what obstacles are in front of me. I feel like I just kept building upon that as time kind of went on. And I do want to say too, and I want to throw this out, don't ever be ashamed or afraid to get help, because I think that that's what helped me too. I had a therapist and a counselor and a life coach and a mentor. So in really getting other people to help get out of your head, I think is an amazing thing. Don't ever be ashamed of it. Don't ever be ashamed to ask for help. I think by doing so has allowed me to be the best possible version of myself, because whenever I feel like I need an outlet, I have all the outlets and it allows me to grow. So with that being said, I need all the outlets because my life is crazy. So I'd say just about a decade ago, or just over a decade ago, I was diagnosed with a heart condition. 2011, I ran the Boston Marathon. So I was kind of an athlete, and, I worked out a lot. I, always did all the things. I always stayed super healthy. My degree is in exercise health science, so super, super healthy. Get diagnosed with a heart condition in 2012 when I was pregnant with my daughter. And I was pretty much told by a cardiologist that I am never going to run again. The cardiologist at the time in Providence was like, I know you're a young mom, and I just think you need to just get it out of your head. You have like this chronic health condition that is never going to go away. And you just need to start doing some other things. You need to like get it through your head that all the things that you did before, you're not going to be able to do. And I mean, she probably said it a little bit nicer than that, but that's how I perceived it. I perceived it from a really negative standpoint because I'm like, what do you mean? I'm only 30. I don't understand. Like, I'm at the prime of my life. Like, I'm a mom and I can't run after my kids. Like, that sounds insane. And so I kind of took that as my initial challenge, and I started training for like just like tough mud, not tough mudders, but like, like the little mud runs and stuff like that. And I call them little, but I do Spartan races now. So something a little bit more than a Spartan race. And I started doing Spartan races and started like training to do all the things I was told I couldn't do. So I might not be able to run long distance, but I could run in short spurts and then climb up a wall, and then run in a short spurt and, dig in the mud. And so I was able to do the things that I didn't think I'd be able to do, but with a different outlet. And that was an amazing outlet for me because it allowed me to kind of be empowered to do something. And in 2018, I ran my first Spartan trifecta, and I actually think I have some awards actually behind me. And I ran a Spartan trifecta, and what that means is I ran 3 different types of races. One of them was like 3 to 4 miles, another one was 7 to 8, and the other one was 14 plus up Mount Killington. And it took 7.5 hours, and I had Jim by my side, and we finished the race, and I made it through all the things. And it was in that moment, I was like, wow, like this isn't a marathon, but this is way bigger than a marathon. And I accomplished something that I didn't think I'd be able to accomplish. Fast forward 6 months later, I had my first heart attack, probably because I am stubborn and do all of the things, and I probably shouldn't be doing it. I had a mild heart attack, and, the short of that very long story was I could have used it as one of two things in my life. I could have said, I had a heart attack. I probably shouldn't be doing all of the things. Instead, I decided to change the way that I was training, change my mentality, really get focused on what my breathing looked like, what my heart rate looked like, what all my levels look like, and really start to understand my body, that I'm actually training for the Boston Marathon that I'll be running in, I don't know, I think it's just over like 85 days from now. But it's so amazing because something that I never thought I'd be able to do. I ran 7 miles yesterday, like just because. And it's the most amazing feeling because I was told so many times in my life, like, you're not going to be able to do something. I'm like, you better believe I'm going to do it. I'm going to get up and I'm going to run circles around you. It's going to take me longer. And do people get scared? Absolutely. My family is just like, I don't know why you're doing this. It's a mistake. This is the thing. If I can't run, I can walk. So it's not like, I'm pushing my body to the point of I'm going to just drop. So I tell everyone, I'm like, if my heart rate's high, I walk. I don't run fast. I do 13-minute miles. So, it's really not that it's not, I mean, it's challenging, but it's something that I'm doing for me. So it's not about how long it takes. It's about still just being able to achieve it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great story that, again, the grit and grace, right? Because, and you guys, she really does run all the time. And yesterday it was like sleety, gross mess here. And I saw you post about running anyway, and you just don't give up. I mean, you really don't give up. And that's that tenacity that I saw in you that I really loved.
Oh, I'm stubborn.
You're stubborn. Yeah. I'm sure your husband probably maybe calls it stubbornness. Hey, I want to go back because you touched on something when you were talking about sort of building a support system around yourself, whether that's coaches or counselors or a mix of people, mentors, whatever. And you talked about kind of needing to get things out of your head and having people that you can use. So one of my questions that I wanted to ask you was, you've had this crazy ride of just shifting and growing in your agility and your flexibility in your professional life too, with you sort of see these niches and you're like, oh, I think that could be a thing. Let me fill that niche. And you've been very successful, like financially and personally at doing this. How do you keep the limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome, which tied back into being in your head too much, because those things always keep you in your head, right? How do you keep those at bay? Like, what, most of us get stuck around that sometimes, but you definitely don't seem to let it hold you back. What do you do there? What's your secret?
Well, I guess the first thing is I would say I just really don't care what anybody else thinks. So that's number one.
Ah,
And
that's a big
it's a
one.
big one, right? So about a year ago, I made a comment to one of my best friends and I was just like, I actually don't care what that person thinks about this. I'm going to go and do it anyways. And she goes, welcome. I go, welcome to what? She goes, you made it to 40. And I'm like, well, I'm not 40 yet. She goes, no, but you got 40 mentality. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And she goes, you get to a point in your age where you stop caring what other people think. Some people get to it sooner than others. She goes, congratulations, like you made it. And it was just, this very eye-opening experience because all she did was make this comment. And I use that as, you know what? She is absolutely right. When someone goes to say something like, well, what do you think about this? Or, oh, it seems like you're, that imposter syndrome type of thing, right? And I feel like there's a lot of mixed emotions between, around imposter syndrome, where for me, it's, I'm going to do what I want to do because it makes me happy. Are there other people who do what I do? Absolutely. Are there other people that have the businesses that I have? Absolutely. And in the grand scheme of things, they're not me. And I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. If someone's created the wheel, I'm going to make it better. And if an opportunity comes up and we're going to collaborate, I want to collaborate with people. I drop competition. I firmly believe in collaboration. And I believe that I'm going to do it because I want to do it. And I don't care what anybody else thinks. And I think when you shift your mentality to those like viewpoints, I feel like it truly changes your perspective because I really don't care.
So I want to build on that because you also talk about and exemplify finding happiness in yourself. It's an inside job, right?
Absolutely.
And in order to do that, you have to let go of ego and you have to detach from all the external factors that many of us find validation in for too long in our lives. But you, again, you've gotten to that point, and I do think earlier than most, where that stuff doesn't matter to you.
No, it's seeking validation. I think when we seek validation from somebody else, we're always going to be, disappointed, or we're going to disappoint somebody else. And this was something, I mean, I think I had to learn it early on, only for the sense of I come from a very tough family to begin with. And no matter what I did, even my dad remarried, my stepmom's great, but she's super tough and she's, has that old school mentality. It's like, hey, I got my degree. They're like, great. When are you getting your master's? Oh, I had my first baby. When are you having your second one? Oh, I graduated at 3.9. What do you mean it's not a 4.0? So I always had this, no matter what I did, I could not meet the expectations. And my dad adapted that same mentality. So it's like, oh, you're doing great, but, and I'm like, what do you mean, but? I'm like, I'm literally doing all of the things. What do you mean? And so I was always disappointed in the fact of I would set these expectations for myself, I'd achieve them, and then it'd be like, oh, all right. And I'm like, wait a minute, why aren't you like clapping, standing on your head, like, doing all the things? And I didn't feel like I was being celebrated by other people. And again, no fault. It's an old school mentality. It's, we're a different generation. And I fall between that weird gap of generations. And so for me, it was, I had to let go of external validation. And I think, again, a lot of it came from, I got a life coach. The life coach, she is incredible. She shifted my mindset with every time I go to apologize, thank somebody. That enough was to change my mentality with so many things. So, I let go of a lot of things that it takes time. Like people don't want to let go. And I'm not telling people to let go of the things that have made them the person that they are, but recognize them and understand it and realize that there's a place for it. But your validation is not going to change the way that I do things. I live my life to be happy, not to make Marianne happy or make my husband or my kids happy. My goal is to obviously make my kids happy, but if I'm not happy, they're not going to be happy. And my biological mom said that to me when I was like 10. She's like, if I'm not happy, I'm never going to be a good mom. And that was like her excuse for divorcing my dad. And there were so many other things. But I remember at the age of 10, that sentence was so powerful to me. I'm like, she is so selfish. And then I'm like, wow, that was the most brilliant thing that woman has ever said her entire life. That might be the only brilliant thing that she did other than give birth to me. And I mean that wholeheartedly. But it always resonated with me because it's true. If we're not happy, we can't exert happiness. We can't make other people happy. I'm happy, and you feel it even through the computer because it's genuine. It's real. I mean it. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I can't wait to start the day. I mean, I had a heart attack, so my first thing is like, praise the gods, I'm alive. But after that, I'm like, I can't wait to start my day. And I truly own that. And it takes time.
I love all of that. And I can tell you that I've actually talked a little bit about that same thing. I grew up in that same sort of mentality of no matter what you did, you could bring home all A's and a B, and it's like, why'd you get the B? Like, and not in such a, like you didn't get punished or anything, but it was always a question of how do you get to that next best thing, or how do you obtain that next best thing? And it took me until my 50s to shed that and realize that I was spending my whole career chasing that external validation of what can I get next? Oh, great. I got the next title. How do I get to the next one? It was just this, continuous fight to keep going and going and going. But to what end? To what end?
Right.
I wasn't happy in it. So yeah, so that's a huge lesson for people, and I can really relate. I want to go back. You touched on this, and you, I think, lived this way even before your heart attack, but you said you start your morning every morning with sort of, thankful that you woke up.
Absolutely.
And I do think you live your life in gratitude and surrounded by positivity. And obviously, with all your story and all the background and all the things you've been through, it's easy to see that too could went in the other direction. So what do you find is the easiest to incorporate that into your life and not let the negativity kind of rain on the parade?
That's hard, right? So this is going to come into practice. And I was a yoga instructor for over a decade as well. So I think the repetition of always reminding myself that it's a practice. And I became a yoga instructor because my crazy resonates with a lot of people that don't know how to release that energy and slow down and be present. So I, by being an instructor and teaching for so long, I think it really helped to teach me, to look inward. I would always teach it, but for years I never listened. It wasn't until I stopped teaching that I was like, wow, I said some really great things. And, it's not that I didn't believe it, but I didn't practice it, right? So I'd be like, you got to let that go. And then I'd go home and I'd be like, in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not doing it, but I'm telling other people to do it. This doesn't make sense because we all go through things, right? Like I've gone through roller coasters over the past few decades. And so for me, it's always looking for a positive in a negative situation. And this is the easiest way of doing it, right? So, one, just always finding something to be grateful for. I started reading The Magic by Rhonda Burns, I don't know, maybe 7 years ago. I read that book religiously every single day. I do not read it front to back. I will flip through, I will open up a page and I read a page every single day to remind myself of something to be grateful for. And if you've never read the book, I encourage everybody. I always buy people this book. I'm like, you know what? You need more gratitude in your life. And I'll just like Amazon ship it to them. And it's such a simple book, but it's 28 days of gratitude. Every day you practice something new and you build on it. So, every day at some point, what are 10 things that you are grateful for? Well, I'm grateful for my health. And, I woke up and my children and my house. And okay, those things are great. But then you start being a little bit more grateful for, more things like this friendship. I'm grateful that I had this opportunity to be on your podcast today. I'm grateful that I came home and I have a house that has heat in it. Even just the little things, right? And then, it kind of fast forwards and you talk about like different ways of staying positive and without giving away like the whole book, because I truly believe that this book is magical. I just love it so much because it's the gentle reminder to be grateful in the course of my everyday. But there was something in it that really resonated was when I was working in the corporate world, I was reading this book and it was like, if you don't love your job, what are all the positives that came out of it? And I'm like, I hate this job, and it wasn't, I loved what I did, but there were so many things in it that I needed to really focus on. I had a boss who was great, but didn't have the best employee employer etiquette. We'll use that. Great person, terrible boss. And it really taught me what to look for in that relationship. You know what? All of the things that he did, I need to take that negative and turn them into a positive. If I'm going to own a business someday, how can I not be that? And then when I shifted that mindset of he taught me this valuable lesson, like this man who drives me insane taught me how to be the best boss I possibly can be. And now, like, my employees are like, you're the best boss ever. I'm like, thank you, in hindsight. And so it's taking the negative and finding a positive. And I always challenge people, don't find one positive, find three. What are three things out of every negative situation? Because the more positive we have over the negative, you're always going to have a positive mindset. Once you shift, it doesn't turn around. People are like, you're the most positive person I ever met. Like, how do you do it? I'm like, it's real. It's a little aggressive sometimes, but it comes from a place of pure practice. And on the days that I don't practice, I mean, I have my days and I swear a lot and it happens and I let it go.
I love that message around taking the negative situations and trying to find the positive message in them. And I do agree. I mean, also someone that spent, all her life in corporate America, you have lots of different leaders, and there's always the ability to say, what do I like from their style and what do I dislike and never want to replicate from their style? And I think that's a tool in becoming a leader yourself, is recognizing those things. But I think being able to train yourself, and it is a practice of looking for those things every day, makes a huge, huge difference. So kudos on mastering that practice.
Right.
I'm still a work in progress, but I do try every day.
I feel like we are, though. You have to be. You have to be that work in progress. And just, I totally cut you off, so I will
No, go
apologize
ahead.
for that because it's not intentional. But, to just quickly piggyback on that whole situation as well. Also know that we can never change somebody else's thought
Mm.
process. So knowing how we react to a situation to be reactive or proactive. When we're reactive, it's never going to be a good situation. Always looking for that positive allows us to be proactive in that situation as well, no matter what, how they speak to us. So that's really important too for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I talk about is learning to take a pause, right? And that works in so many ways. It's, I have a lot of people in the group that have been working on trying to get healthier, and we know that sort of taking a pause and being more mindful in the present moment when you're deciding, do I really want to eat this thing? Or same thing on reacting, right? So instead of like snapping back at someone because they say something you don't agree with, or because it's makes you feel a certain kind of way, I think learning to just take a second and be like, is this really the thing? Do I really want to react to this thing? Because I'm not going to change their mind, and I may not be able to change the situation. So I think that's a really important one. So I want to touch on your latest business venture, I guess I'll say, EPIC47. So I think this came as a result of all the work you've done with mentoring and being on boards and whatnot for network organizations, that kind of thing, and really coaching and mentoring other people. And again, I think, have found, you can tell me I'm wrong, but have sort of found this need out there and you're trying to fill it. But I want to hear about that, but I also want to hear about the 47, why you picked the 47, because I think that's significant.
Absolutely. So the 47 actually came as a funny story, and it was with one of my mentors. I always knew that whatever business that was going to be my big business had to have the number 47 in it. When I was in high school, this is the boring story. When I was in high school, my high school sports number was 47. My birthday's in April and my favorite number is 7. So 4 and 7 have always resonated around me, and I was like, that is the reason why I am picking 47. There was no other reason at that moment in time. And other than I had a mission, but I wasn't clear. And so I was in a meeting with one of my mentors, and he's the quieter of the two mentors. And we're going through, my business and why I was going to name it Epic 47. And he's like, that's terrible. I'm like, what do you mean that's terrible? He's like, no, you can't have that that's not a good story. Like, you need a story that people are going to be like, wow, I'm buying this story, but you have to have it be part of your mission and it has to be real. And I go, well, I want to help a lot of people in business, which is why it's epic. And 47 is it's my lucky number. And he's like, no. So I knew it was my lucky number, and I knew that I wanted to help a lot of people because, again, it was epic, but it wasn't enough to like tell a good story. So like if I'm on a podcast, I'm like, so that's what I'm doing. I'm like, wow, that sounds fantastic. And you're just like smiling and nodding. And so, and he told me the story. Like, he's like, the business that I came up with had the number 46 because when I was in Afghanistan, we had kill cards and there were 46 kill cards for the 46 people that we needed to look for that were all like terrorists. And I was just like, well, I can't beat that story. So it was like, I had to really come up with a good story because the second I start telling that story, people are like, ooh, tell me more. So at that point, I really took some time to think about it, and it took a little while, a few weeks maybe. And I was going for a walk with the whole family and we're walking down the street and I was like, I know what it is. And Jim's like, well, what is it? I go, well, I did the math. If I gave myself till 2047, I am confident I can help 47 people find the business of their dreams or create the business of their dreams. Realistically, will the number exceed it? Yes. Yes, it most certainly will. But also realistically, that gives me 2 businesses a year to work on till I pretty much get to that goal. So it's realistic. I own 4 businesses. I'm starting 3 more this year. So realistically, I will hit that goal. But it gave me this tangible story of something that was real. 2047. There was my 47 businesses in the time frame. There's that. So I want to help 47 people find their dreams. And if I can do that by 2047, I know that I have lived my most fulfilling life because I'll be closer to retirement age by the time I'm saying that out loud. Um, but it will also be the fact that I was able to do all the things that I said I would do in a realistic expectation and really set a goal that I know that I can achieve. And so when I really started shifting my mindset of that's what I wanted it to do, that's where it came from. And there's no stopping me now because now I say the story all the time. So, I mean, I guess I have to live up to my expectations.
Absolutely. And so it ties into your passion, right? Because you're passionate about trying to help people
Mhm.
find their why and what they feel like is their truest self and what they can do with that. So give me a secret or a little tip that people can kind of just start that thought process. If somebody's kind of dabbling out there with the idea and they're really stuck on what should I do or who am I really? Do you have any cheat sheets or any little tips that help people to kind of get their frame of mind right?
Well, it's trying to figure out that why, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I had this conversation with a client this morning and we're sitting in front of me and she's like, I don't know what it is I'm supposed to do. I don't know my purpose. And I'm like, well, I don't know your purpose. And, I'm very sarcastic when I talk and it's just part of my personality, but I like to be blunt with people because you can ask me what I think you should be doing for a living. And I can tell you a million things because I see all of this in you, but only you truly know what you want that to look like. And my first thought is if you say, I don't know what I want, you're lying because not many people are really sitting there going, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do or where I'm supposed to be. You have this crazy dream inside your head. And this was an exercise I did with a client this morning. So this is exactly the thought process that I do with people. So great. I'm losing all the business. No, just kidding. I'm totally kidding. If I can help one person by listening to this podcast and actually doing this, I've done my job. I don't need to get paid to do the things that I do because I do it because I love it. I mean, yes, I need to get paid. So, I mean, I redact that. But with that being said, I sat in front of her and I said, what is it that you truly want to do? She's like, well, you're going to think this sounds absolutely crazy. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what I think. I mean, I could look and tell you that that's an awful idea, but that doesn't mean anything. Because remember what I said, don't care what other people think. So I said, write down what it is that you want. And she sat there and she wrote down what she wanted. And she's like, I know it sounds stupid, right? I'm like, I think that sounds incredible. I said, but again, it doesn't matter what I think. She's like, I know it sounds stupid. And I was like, that's why you don't know what you want because you're scared about me validating your dream.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what I think. I mean, you could want to say that you want to open a surf shop in Hawaii. I think that's a great idea. I lived in Hawaii and those people are needed. I want to, go out and I want to move to California and do this, that, and the other thing. Whatever your dreams are, write them down. Because the second you get them out of your head, now they're tangible. Now they can be real. You write that on a piece of paper and do this little exercise. So I'll give you a quick exercise. Take a piece of paper. At the bottom of the paper, write down your dream. At the top of the dream, I want you to write, or at the top of the paper, write down, what are you going to do to get there? And then start writing down the things that you need to do. And when I asked her, write down, listen to my words, what am I going to do to get there? And she wrote, put money aside so I can start this business. I said, that's not what I said. I said, write down, what am I going to do to get there? Literally write the sentence because that thought process is her thought is the most important thing to get there is money. She didn't think about the sentence that I asked her to write. So think about that, think about what was it that you were thinking about writing down? Was it the sentence or was it what you were actually thinking about? Because that's going to show you where your focus is, and that's going to be the most important thing that you need to focus on to get to where you are. If money is the issue, what am I going to do? Open a bank account, put $10 aside every week in a separate account that you can't see so you can start building your dream. Talk to other people that may be a part of that dream so you can actually start looking for investors and stuff like that. There's so many ways of doing it. And I think by just starting to write down what it's going to look like to get to that dream, it's going to make it more tangible. You're going to find your why. You all have your why.
Yeah. And I think writing, I mean, it's such great advice because I think for a lot of people, they're scared to say it out loud. They're scared to even dream it, right? I've talked about this with my group not too long ago when we were on the book club meeting, and it was about, why do we hold ourselves back and we sort of keep ourselves small? We're afraid to say these dreams, or we make them smaller. And I think writing them down, to your point, and even if we think we'll never get there, we'll never do this, just write it down and start thinking, what are some steps that can bring me closer? Even if you can't get all the way there. I think that's super great advice. And I think it helps clarify. I think the other thing is, I like to tell people is, think back to when you were younger, because I think for many of us women, especially women, I'm sure some men too, we lose sight of what that thing is along the way. We get busy with life and we forget. And I think if you try to go back and remember, like, what are the things you loved in middle school, you will find a common theme there that played out throughout your life. Every single person I talk to, there is a tie back to who they were when they were a kid. And it shows up as an adult version, right? Yeah, you too. Oh, me too. But we lose it a lot in between. So I think that's a really good exercise too. Like, go back and look at your 9, 10, 11-year-old self and say, who was I back then? And what did I love?
I love that. And it's true, right? And it's as history always repeats itself. So those things typically come back around as we continue to move forward. And I do think giving yourself a time frame is important too. And the time frame that we put on this client this morning was, it was a 6-year time span. That's pretty realistic. I mean, in 6 years, you can accomplish a lot. In 5 years, I've started 4 companies. So you never know where you're going to be. But if you can project where you want to be, it's not going to be a crystal clear path. I guarantee you it's not. I didn't think I was going to have a heart attack, but the heart attack just kept me on a different path to get exactly where I want to go. I, keep saying this a lot, and it's resonating in 2023 already, is I wake up and I go, wow, how did I get here? I'm in the place that I actually want to be. It's not my time frame, but projecting forward, I want to own a capital investment firm. Like, that is my dream. I want to reinvest in people who don't have the chance to have an opportunity. And that's like my ultimate goal, as a venture builder, and then, kind of taking the steps to get to be a capital investor. And it's not that I wanted that to be my end all be all, but I want to use that resource to help other people achieve the things that they want to achieve, which is why I'm doing it. But as a venture builder, I come in and I help businesses start. I help them start their dream. And it's, instead of them giving me an actual financial piece at the beginning, it's pretty much when the company starts making money, I make money. But it allows them to start a business where they're not paying me. And it's a really great model for them, because I mean, I'm the one that has everything to lose, just as if it was money. And it's really great because it allows me to learn all of these different trades and all of these different industries that aren't necessarily things that are my niche, but I love it because it allows me to continue to do all the things and they're not mine.
Well, and you can support them, right, in the things that they don't know.
Absolutely.
It definitely is a win-win model. I know we're getting close to time here, but I want to circle back to one thing, because you talked about, you were a yoga teacher, and you said that one of the reasons that people resonated with how you taught yoga was, you're kind of crazy. You have this, thing about you. You're like sort of this whirlwind, right? And you said you used yoga to sort of slow down and kind of reframe your busy mind. And I know a lot of people in this group have very high expectations of themselves. They are constantly on the go, and settling the mind and getting quiet is really hard. Do you have any advice there on some ways that to make that easier?
It's hard. And, it's funny because I actually taught sleep meditation for a long time, which everyone finds super funny because we had this conversation. I talk really fast. But when I teach yoga, I actually teach super slow and calm and relax, but I never stop talking. So there's a common theme. I never stop talking, whether it's fast or slow. But the reason why I talk through the whole thing is because it allows the person who's listening to what I'm saying to keep moving and engaging, but not thinking about what's in their head. So if we find that we're always in our head, which is me, I actually put my headphones on and I will listen to music with songs that I know. So not something that I don't know, but a song that I know, because naturally we do this as like humans. When we're working and a song comes on, you start singing the song. So when you need to be, get out of your own head, put music on that that gives you like, inspiration, and just have it on in the background. Because I find that like when my mind is cluttered, listening to music helps me to detach. And some people, they're like, oh, well, I can't do that. It's too overwhelming. Watch a TV show or do something that's not what you were doing, but something that you can engage with. So people that are in your heads, you have to get out of your head by engaging in something completely different than what you're doing at that moment in time. And music is the quickest way of doing it because it's short. So even if you listen to 2 songs.
Always looking for advice on that one. I think that one trips a lot of people up. So before we go, I just want to give you a chance. Is there anything we didn't hit on that you'd love to put out there and make sure the audience hears? Or do you think we covered most of the main topics?
I think we covered a lot of them. And, be gentle on yourself. Gentle and truly just start to listen to the voices in your head. And I said this, a few times already, but, when you wake up in the morning, and this is my new advice, listen to the thoughts that are in your head. What are the things that are circling around? Wow, I can't wait to get up and start my day. I can't wait to go to work. I mean, how many people are listening to this that actually say that out loud? They probably don't, right? And if in that moment you're finding that you're not saying, I can't wait to do this, or, oh, I don't want to go do this, really pay attention to what that sounds like. Because if you're saying you don't want to do something, or you're not overly motivated to do the thing, focus on that. So those are the things that you got to start changing first. And I think once you start changing the things that are getting us kind of in that negative situation out the gate, you're going to start changing your mentality.
Yeah, I agree. It all ties together and you start feeling it, and then it just keeps going and going. So it's good. Thank you for that. We'll put all your links in the show notes so people can figure out how to get in touch with you and watch your journey, especially as you progress forward for this marathon. I'm going to be watching that. And it's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.